Now we will continue with teenage brains. Beatrice Luna, a University of Pittsburgh professor of psychiatry who uses neuroimaging to study the teen brain, used a simple test that illustrates this learning curve. Luna scanned the brains of children, teens, and 20-somethings while they performed an anti-saccade task, a sort of eyes-only video game where you have to stop yourself from looking at a suddenly appearing light. You view on a screen on which the red crosshairs of the center occasionally disappear, just as a light flickers elsewhere on the screen. Your instructions are to not look at the light and instead to look in the opposite direction. A sensor detects any eye movement. It's a tough assignment since flickering lights naturally draw our attention. To succeed, you must override both a normal impulse to attend to new information and curiosity about something forbidden. Brain geeks call this response inhibition. 10-year-olds stink at it, failing about 45% of the time. Teens do much better. In fact, by age 15, they can score as well as adults if they're motivated, resisting temptation about 70 to 80% of the time. What Luna found most interesting, however, was not those scores. It was the brain scans she took while people took the test. Compared with adults, teens tended to make less use of brain regions that monitor performance, spot errors, plan, and stay focused, areas that the adults seem to bring online automatically. This let the adults use a variety of brain resources and better resist temptation, while the teens used those areas less often and more readily gave in to the impulse to look at the flickering light, just as they're more likely to look away from the road to read a text message. If offered an extra reward, however, teens showed they could push those executive regions to work harder, improving their scores. And by age 20, their brains respond to this task much as the adults do. Luna suspects the improvement comes as richer networks and faster connections make the executive region more effective. These studies help explain why teens behave with such vexing inconsistency: beguiling at breakfast, disgusting at dinner, masterful on Monday, sleepwalking on Saturday. Along with lacking experience generally, they're still learning to use their brain's new networks. Stress, fatigue, or challenges can cause a misfire. Abigail Baird, a Vassar psychologist who studies teens, calls this neural gawkiness, an equivalent to the physical awkwardness teens sometimes display while mastering their growing bodies. The slow and uneven developmental arc revealed by these imaging studies offers an alluringly pithy explanation for why teens may do stupid things like drive at 113 miles an hour, aggrieve their ancestry, and get gotten with child. They act that way because their brains aren't done. You can see it right there in the scans. This view, as titles from the explosion of scientific papers and popular articles about the teen brain put it, presents adolescents as works in progress whose immature brains lead some to question whether they are in a state akin to mental retardation. The story you're reading right now, however, tells a different scientific tale about the teen brain. Over the past 5 years or so, even as the work-in-progress story spread into our culture, the discipline of adolescent brain studies learned to do some more complex thinking of its own. A few researchers began to view recent brain and genetic findings in a brighter, more flattering light, one distinctly colored by evolutionary theory. The resulting account of the adolescent brain, call it the adaptive adolescent story, casts the teen brain less as a rough draft than as an exquisitely sensitive, highly adaptable creature wired almost perfectly for the job of moving from the society of home into the complicated world outside. This view will likely sit better with teens. More important, it sits better with biology's most fundamental principle, that of natural selection. Selection is hell on dysfunctional traits. If adolescence is essentially a collection of them, angst, idiocy, and haste, impulsiveness, selfishness, and reckless bumbling, then how did those traits survive selection? They couldn't, not if they were the period's most fundamental or consequential features? The answer is that those troublesome traits don't really characterize adolescence. They're just what we notice most because they annoy us or put our children in danger. As B.J. Casey, a neuroscientist at Weill Cornell Medical College, who has spent nearly a decade applying brain and genetic studies to our understanding of adolescence, puts it, we're so used to seeing adolescence as a problem, but the more we learn about what really makes this period unique, the more adolescence starts to seem like a highly functional, even adaptive period. It's exactly what you need to do the things you have to do then.